This is Talk the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. We are back. We are here once again to talk about Manchester United winning another game, this time against Crystal Palace. It wasn't perfect, but we'll get into all the details of that as Michael Carrick equals the best ever start after 9 Premier League matches for a boss in the English top flight. There's a second game coming up pretty quickly this week to look forward to as well, the trip away to Newcastle, and we'll preview that game on this podcast too. Laurie's back. We've got Andy and Critch as well. Hello, everyone. Only one place to start. Andy Mitten, how was the Brits? I can't believe I just said that sentence.
Can't believe we're still not starting talking about Crystal Palace losing again against a mighty Manchester United. The Brits was decent. I enjoyed it. It's bit out of my comfort zone, just went along, watching, and I'm ready to field questions from yourselves. Went to all the after parties. Obviously, they needed a bit of glamour there, so I turned up, showed my face for a little bit, and I enjoyed it. It was, go on. I know you've got questions to try and slaughter me, so I'm ready for you.
My one is just about the picture you posted with your lovely wife, Bar. I mean, she looked like she was perhaps even going to win an award. She was very glamorous. You look like you might be serving the drinks. What was going on there?
Oh, well, I wore a thing called a suit, and sometimes men have them. You probably don't yourself. And I did my best, but cheers for the feedback anyway. I did feel like the dress code was glamorous. And I just thought, I'm not going with some of them cockneys who came up from London from the music industry. They wore gold space jackets with bits of the moon on the shoulders or whatever they do down there. I just wore a normal suit, and that was my nothing velvet, nothing like that, no flares, just a normal suit. So I apologise if it wasn't glamorous enough.
I thought you scrubbed up well, mate. So don't let Laurie get to you. The thing that made me laugh the most was, that you must have met some incredible people across those 2 days. The after parties, all the glamour of all these new places in Manchester, in high-rise buildings that you were partying in, going to the award ceremony itself. But the only person you actually shared in the WhatsApp group that you'd met was the train guy who wears a camera on his head.
Yeah. So I was in one of them fancy parties, like you say, and there were lots of musicians there, and I did really appreciate the invite as well. Met some very nice people, but that fella who has the camera on his head, he was there, and I wanted to talk to him about train stations, and see what his favourite ones were, but I didn't mither anybody. Yeah. I just sat back.
Kindred spirits.
Yeah, kindred spirits, definitely. I just stood back and just soaked it all in, and quite enjoyed the fact that it wasn't a football crowd. Elizabeth Early walked past me inside Piccadilly Station. My wife said, "I know you like her. You're going to get a picture." I said, "No, I'm just."
Whoa, did she actually?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. Did that really happen?
That really happened, mate. 100%. 100% with a son. And
you're still married?
Yeah, Yeah, my wife said, "I know you like her. Why don't you get a picture?" I said, I'm not asking anyone for a picture.
I can only imagine how cringy you were.
So all the
on the train guy though.
Yeah.
On the train guy though, Andy, have you not thought about wearing a camera on your head when you visit a new stadium? Because the look of excitement that he gets when a train goes past has obviously turned him into a viral superstar. Do you not think people want to see your excited face when you step inside, Brentford's GTEX ground for the first time, legitimately?
This could be your leap onto TikTok, surely.
A leap onto TikTok. I'm a bit old for all that. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Laurie, and the answer is absolutely no, that is not happening. That's like my little vice going to these grounds, but I would have spoke to him. He was with a very glamorous lady, and I didn't want to trouble him, and my wife was talking to some lad out of a boy band, so I just made sure I gave him the evil stare and didn't get a bit carried away with himself. And it was good. The only band
was it Harry Styles?
No, he's good. He's a United fan. I tell you what I got told about him the other day. He used to go to a lot of matches, sharing a season ticket with his dad, and just put his hood up and just mind his own business and go and watch Manchester United. I think the last game he came to was Luton away in 2024. And he told someone who I knew that day that's what he used to do. So he's from Chapel. We've spoken about him before. But the only band whose music I've actually bought and paid for, another band from Carl's neck of the woods, London, like most of the award winners in Manchester on Saturday, unfortunately, called Sout. And they won an award but didn't even turn up to collect it. So I'm like to my missus, I know these, here we go. And it was the only one. Yeah,
not just salt, Andy.
Salt, yeah, whatever. This is your wheelhouse, as you'd call it, talking about this.
I know these. I get the name wrong.
Yeah,
Laurie, he did very well on the quiz last week. He did very well on the quiz, so we can't question him too much on his recent knowledge post Paul Heaton.
I'm just still asking why was Andy invited to the Brits?
I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I met the gentleman who invited me, and he was a lovely man. And I really appreciated it. My wife appreciated it even more. There's lots of very talented people. We're living in a pretty troubled world, so it's just nice to see these people.
You're contractually obliged to say that, aren't you?
I'm contractually obliged to say it, yeah. I mean, I wonder, I can say whatever I want. I can say that I'm absolutely livid that loads of Cockneys came up to Manchester with the purple spacesuits and won all the awards, I'm not obliged to say anything at all. That arena's pretty decent. I'd avoided going because it's next to City's ground. But yeah, I got the Met there, and I think it was good for Manchester. And I enjoyed it. My one trip to the Brits. I think it's coming back next year, mate. You need to go next year. I'll get you an invite. You might be a bit cooler by that point anyway, so you might just get onto the guest list.
Right, let's talk about football. I hear people cry because Manchester United have won again. Remarkable, this, Critch, isn't it? I mean, kind of getting used to it now, aren't we? They didn't even play particularly well, but they still escaped with 3 points. Who cares?
That's it. We're used to it by now. It's been the story of the last few weeks, and it's been a very positive story. 6 wins from 7 games now, 19 points from a possible 21. They've won from behind again, like they did against Arsenal, and even when they haven't fallen behind in games, they've responded to setbacks, and we've seen that as a theme that's run throughout the Carrick era so far. They actually won with more possession yesterday as well. So it's like even all these old shibboleths, is that a word? This just come into my head, shibboleth? I'm not even sure what that means, but these sort of things idea. These beliefs that we had about this team, they are confounding them to an extent. I guess, look, the performance wasn't totally there for certainly the first half hour. And we'll come on to that a bit later, I think. But you are seeing this team, even when they aren't perhaps starting games as well as they could, or they're just being a bit slow, a bit stodgy has been the word that's come up a lot of times. They are figuring out ways to win games and figuring out ways in which to just improve within games. I thought as poor as really the first half hour was, it was encouraging how Carrick saw that, switched a few things around, started playing Cunha a little bit wider, started instructing Bruno Fernandes to go out a bit wider too, get that width that United were missing in that first period, and they dominated from there onwards. Now, I know the red card helps a lot, and it's another game where United have had an opponent sent off. I think it's 4 times this season now, and I think only Liverpool have had more than that this season. So it's I suppose there's a small, tiny little asterisk that you can apply to some of these performances, but then we all remember that Everton game, don't we? With Idrissa Gueye going off and United failing to beat a 10-man, in fact, losing to them at Old Trafford. And it doesn't feel like this team would find themselves in that situation anymore. And, we can, it feels a little bit churlish to criticise or attach asterisks to performances and wins against 10 men and be so critical of United when they're not able to beat 10 men as well. So another really positive performance, up to 3rd now. It's nosebleed territory. One thing that Carrick said repeatedly is that he's not getting carried away. And I don't think anybody is at this stage, but things are looking up.
Yeah, they are, Laurie. I mean, we do care that the performance wasn't as good as the result, and we'll talk about that aspect a little bit later, because obviously longer term it is a development point for this team and the club generally. But that said, finding a way to win, that's the type of thing that we've asked for throughout this season. And it's now taken this team, like Critch said, to 3rd place. It's the first time they've finished a game week in that position, or as high as that position, since May 2023. It's been a while. So they deserve praise for that, don't they?
Yeah, I am glad on that context that my emboldened statement last Monday last Tuesday.
You're going to talk about Aston Villa, aren't you?
A good night out, yes. I did say they weren't that good. They've gone and lost to Wolves,
I thought it might take longer than the first considered answer on football, but you've gone there.
They're all interlinked. You're asking me about United going third, and they had to go third. They could only go third because Aston Villa lost. So, there we go. I'll just leave that one there for people to ruminate over. But
can I just say though? Can I just say sorry
for them?
Sorry, can I just say that I was the original Aston Villa hater on this podcast way back in December, and when I had Ian, you coming at me saying, "But they've won 15 games in 17, like that means anything," and I had Andy saying, "Oh, they're higher in the league table, and there's this thing called the league table, and I think that tells you how good a team is." What's the league table saying now?
Listen, Chris, this is my victory lap, not your victory lap.
Sorry, get the tapes.
Roll the
tapes
racing each other to do the victory
producer
lap.
Ollie, bring the tapes back from December. I was saying this first.
Okay, fine. Well, listen, I've jumped on the bandwagon, and United have gone third. But it is a point that we were saying all throughout the season, weren't we, under Ruben Amorim? Can they make it fourth? And every time they kind of failed on that mission, and this one it looked like maybe the jitters were coming in again at the start of the game. Certainly Palace started really well, I thought. The structure about them, the sharpness to them. United were just off it, weren't they? Lethargic and loose passes. But to Critch's point, I do think that the red card obviously was a huge factor in it, right? And we can only question what would have happened if he hadn't been sent off necessarily. But I think once he's through on goal and he's got his hand on his shoulder and he's pulling him back, he's trying to get an advantage, illegally, then I think it has to be a red card, really, and a penalty. It's the ultimate punishment for what is kind of a small indiscretion, I suppose, but nevertheless, it was a fantastic pass by Bruno, a good run by Cunha, and so United are generating these moments where teams are having to feel like they might get sent off, albeit the Idrissa Gana Gueye one was maybe not so much the case, but they're forcing the issue so that, these opposition players are feeling like they have to do things that might jeopardise a red card. So I kind of think United should get the credit for that, really. And then they stepped it up, didn't they? They realised what they had to do. End of the first half, I think they realised they need to get more crosses in the box. Bruno certainly taking the initiative with that, with the free kick to Casemiro, with the cross to Sesko, kind of not waiting about for it, and then obviously his cross in the second half to Sesko is a brilliant bit of skill, really, and we'll get onto Sesko, won't we, I guess, in more detail, but it was one of those crosses that, it wasn't on a plate for him, but it was certainly, here's the buffet, take what you want from it, and Sesko absolutely gobbled it up, and so I think United had another gear. If they'd really needed to go again, I think they would have done, and so I think that, a 2-1 victory against Palace, they did what they needed to do, as they are doing under Michael Carrick. Yeah, we can certainly wonder about other moments in games, whether they can get over the line, but I think that's still a mark of a sign of a good team, that they can do it when they're not perhaps playing at their best.
I mean, Andy, what excites you more? Manchester United being third for the first time in a while, the fact that they've got, a 6-point cushion now to Chelsea down in 6th, or the plus 12 goal difference?
Manchester United looking like we're going into the Champions League. I'm growing more confident each week that is going to happen. You mentioned Villa. If I'm going to drop in bits of Brit Awards, Kelly Osborne, I think her name is, she went up to Villa and got a few boos, but nowhere near as many boos as any reference to Manchester City, which quite amused me because you're in Manchester, so obviously Mancunians are there and they all support United. So Pep Guardiola's face came on a screen. Noel Gallagher was there for a little bit. I think the Palace game, it was all about getting the 3 points. It was another game where I don't think United played well in the first half. Another game where United got stronger in the second half. Another game which Manchester United won. I'm watching all the other teams thinking, who's going to drop points? Who's going to drop points? Villa was the big bonus this weekend, but the other teams were winning. Watching Chelsea, Arsenal, thinking, who do you want to win here? Have I totally given up on the league title? I probably have. I think Old Trafford on Sunday was notable for me. The Sesko winner, fantastic. I thought the atmosphere was quite poor. And when Bruno scored his penalty, he ran back to the centre circle and he urged the crowd to get behind him. And I think he was right to do that because it was really flat. It was pretty flat from the Palace fans, but it was pretty flat from United fans. It was pretty underwhelming. And Michael Carrick touched on it in the aftermatch. He didn't really say anything. I like the fans. I like the support that I get from fans. But I think United fans could have been a lot better. Great goal from Sesko. But it was all about the 3 points. And Manchester United got the 3 points. Would we have got the 3 points a year ago? Probably not.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the atmosphere. Phil got in touch to say that he felt the atmosphere was a bit flat, particularly in the first half. And he said overall this season it's been good despite some of the performances and results before Christmas at Old Trafford. I mean, what do you think, Laurie, on that point? Is it just a one-off that it wasn't great against Palace? Carrick, when talking about the atmosphere, referenced the fact that it was a pretty rocky start to the game and maybe that set the tone a little bit.
Yeah, I do think that the players have to give something to begin with for the fans to get excited over, and it sort of feeds itself. I do think that United at Old Trafford, the Stretford end, the flags look great, and I think there is generally a sort of surge for atmosphere before kick-off, and then I think it's then over to the players, and you sort of have to have this symbiotic relationship, don't you? But yeah, I don't know, hopefully it was just a Sunday afternoon. People are kind of, wiping their eyes after a big night out on the Saturday night, right? I don't know if that was you, Andy, but I don't know. Let's say, I mean, I was at the Hill Dickinson Stadium on Monday night. The atmosphere was good there. You got St James. It's probably a bit more tricky, isn't it, up in the gods at St James's? But hopefully, it was just a blip. If that was the case, that the atmosphere was a bit ropey.
Yeah, Laurie, you've done a piece as well on The Athletic, referencing one of the banners that was on show on Sunday. It was a response to Jim Radcliffe's comments about immigrants, and the banner read, MUFC proudly colonised by immigrants, and it was unveiled just after half-time. So interesting to see a response there from supporters in the Stretford end to what Radcliffe had to say.
Yeah, certainly. I guess that people certainly feel strongly about this, and so a group of fans have got a flag made and then brought it into the ground as well. And you had Eric Cantona, Jason Park, Patrice Evra, Bruno Fernandes, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Amad Diallo, and Casemiro on it as well. So I think the point was made by that group of fans. I don't think that the club, I think ideally they wouldn't have had it in the stadium, right? I think there was perhaps some discussion around that, but ultimately it was in. The stewards didn't confiscate it. Nobody got chucked out over it. So I think protest is absolutely right and fair in the world that we live in, and certainly at the club as well. And I think that's a point being made by those fans in the Stretford end. But clearly an interesting message, right? Given it's in the stadium, you've got the co-owner of the club has made these comments, and this is a direct response to that. So I guess that's where it'll stay for the time being. And if it comes up again, maybe there'll be more conversation around it. But I certainly thought it was an interesting moment to acknowledge.
Okay, let's get into some of the details then of the win against Crystal Palace. I mean, the place to start is Benjamin Sesko, I think. There's been lots of talk over recent times about whether he should or shouldn't be starting these matches. He was selected to start for the first time under Michael Carrick, and the reward came in the second half with his winning goal. And it just continues, Critch, what has been a very, very impressive body of work from him. And different goals, different ways to score. That one maybe felt a bit more conventional across into the box, which a very tall striker attacks with his head and scores. But he's just he's in an impressive moment at the moment, whether he starts like he did or comes off the bench. I mean, this is now a great thing for Carrick to be able to see that he can utilise in both ways, and he still has that decisive impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that goal, I mean, it's a stunning goal in the way that it goes in, but just because you can kind of expect that it was going to happen, but you can't. There's not a lot that Palace can do to prevent it, and it's exactly why I think a few of us were making the argument that he had to start, because when you have a team that's going to sit deep as Palace do, he occupies defenders, he occupies players, he pins them back. He is that presence. When he can get the run on them, it can be really emphatic in the way that header was. So that's his. What is it? It's his third winning goal, I think, in this little stretch under Carrick, if you go after Fulham and Everton as well. There was obviously the goal at West Ham, which changed the result. So they're important goals. They're also great goals. I think he basically had the monopoly on United's goal of the month for February, didn't he? He had all three entries into that. So this isn't like... it's not Sesko value range. This is Sesko finest, and all my fellow Sesko club card holders, I think, have been proven right over the last few weeks. I would say,
are you having that one as well?
First half,
that and the Villa one.
So yeah, I'm having that. That's definitely mine. That was 100% my coinage. I would say that like after the first half, he wasn't getting on the ball as much, and I saw some people like making out like he's only had 9 touches or whatever, but
7 it was.
7 it was, okay, yeah. 7. I never really understand this obsession with strikers not having touches or having as many touches as possible. I don't want my big 6'5", number 9 Slovenian to get on the ball a lot. I want him to put chances away. I'm not bothered if he's playing like a Roberto Firmino thing and trying to link up the play. He's there for a very different job. If you wanted somebody to do that, you can bring on Joshua Zirkzee. And I had a look. I think Zirkzee came on, and I thought he had a bit of an impact when he came on as well. He had 10 touches, which is more than Sesko had in the entire first half, like within like 4 minutes. He came on in the 86th minute plus stoppage time. But that isn't what you want necessarily from your striker. You want that presence, you want that threat, and that is exactly what Sesko has provided. Doesn't need to be involved. You know, Erling Haaland, the best strikers in the world, they often aren't involved. They're there because they just pose that threat and keep defenders on their toes. And I think he did that all the way right up to his winning goal, which was, again, you know, the type of emphatic finish and emphatic goal that we've seen from him in the last few weeks.
You nodded, Andy. I take it you agree.
I thought it was a fantastic header. And if Critch's point is right, if he's touching the ball once in a game and that's a goal, then that'll be good enough for us. He barely featured in the first sort of 35, 40 minutes. He's a totally different player to Mbeumo, who replaced. I don't think Mbeumo particularly did well moving out of that position, but I'd mentioned in the previous podcast that maybe Ahmad might be the one who was changed, so I can see the logic for it. That said, I wouldn't have been surprised if Michael Carrick would have stuck with the same team. In the press conference on Friday, I asked him about the logic of going with the same team all the time, and then he made a change. So I think that Sesko had been doing well and scoring well. It was a fantastic goal. And I know the club are delighted with him. They've always felt that he's got a huge amount of potential. And he's realising that. And it's still his first season. We spoke to him last week at Everton. And he came across very well, very determined. He said that he was okay with not starting every game, which you want to hear. I don't know privately whether he feels that as well, but when you're scoring all the time and scoring great goals, one of my friends said to me, reminded him of Frank Stapleton. And now even I'm a little bit young to remember Frank Stapleton in the air, but he was fantastic in the air. And that was a top goal. Loving his celebration, loving the mood about him. He's becoming a little bit of a fan favourite, and he's still in his first season. I think he's going to be a top player for United. And people who've criticised him, and plenty have done, I think they're getting it wrong.
I think that is actually the recipe to becoming a fan favourite, isn't it, Laurie? I mean, we saw this a bit with Patrick Dorgu when he had his little spell, considering how much criticism he'd taken and the way that Sesko was written off almost immediately when he arrived at Old Trafford and the way that he was criticised throughout that barren run under Ruben Amorim. I think that is why fans are now getting behind it. I mean, it helps he's scored, 7 goals in his last 8 games and he's thriving under Michael Carrick and he's winning games for United as well. That's the other thing. These goals are decisive goals. Every single one of them seems to be earning at least a point, if not a win, for the team.
Goals, obviously the ones that Critch just mentioned, but also even Burnley away, which United definitely should have won. But without those goals, that's a defeat. And is it 11 points? It's only
the Brighton
maybe?
Goal that's not counted for anything, isn't it?
Yeah,
in the FA
even
Cup.
that is obviously late on trying to win a cup tie or get back into a cup tie rather. I just think that it's weird. If you look at his career, actually, he started slowly at each of the clubs that he's joined and then built throughout the season. So even if you go back as far as Liefering in the Austrian second division, he sort of started slowly and then came through. Critch is raising his eyebrows. Listen, I'm getting onto this research now. I'm trying to recall a member of the Sesko fan club like you, mate. And same at Salzburg, same at Leipzig.
Sesko club card, I think it
Sesko
was, wasn't
club
it?
card, sorry.
Club card member.
Is that not copyrighted by any
That's the joke.
major supermarkets?
Parody law. You're allowed to do it under parody law. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Someone's been studying his legalese. Okay. So my point being that I think the diligence that he shows off the pitch, and I think we've heard quite a bit about it. I think there's probably even more to say on that, really, in terms of the physical stuff that he does, the gym work, but also the mental side of the game that we've spoken a little bit about. But again, I think there's different ways that he is pushing himself in that sense and kind of understanding his role I think that we will see even more from him. I touched on it last week, didn't I, where I said that United actually tried to sign him when he was 19 among multiple times, but he's at different steps sort of pushed back against that because he wants to have this development first before coming and stepping into this role as United's main striker. I think even last summer they might have, ideally wanted to stay another year at Leipzig before making that move, but they got forced into it because you had Arsenal, you had Newcastle, you had all these clubs sort of after him, obviously United in the end, but he's obviously developing at United as we go along, and even in the match, right? So you had, I think, that first half where he did touch the ball infrequently. There was one moment where Bruno had the ball on the byline and he wanted him to run near post and he didn't quite make that movement, and Bruno sort of told him afterwards, and you could see him maybe coaching him a little bit throughout the game, but then he's the one that gets on the end of that cross where Bruno's trying to inject things in the first half. And then again, I think there was that moment where Lacroix kind of, before he got sent off, potentially handballed it, and the ball didn't come off quite as hard as it might have done. But then finally the goal comes, and I think Bruno spoke after the game, didn't he, where he sort of reacted to the idea that Sesko isn't the perfect striker, because he said, well, that ball was there to be won by a Crystal Palace defender and he made it his, and that's the kind of striker that I want. And so I actually think that he's got so many aspects to his game where it can be a deep defence, as you say there, Critch. It can be an open game as at Everton where he's ripping past players. So he's got so many different aspects to his game. He's got that edge. Hopefully he can keep going in this way, because I agree with Andy that the promise is right there.
Definitely. You mentioned the mental aspect. I wrote in the Talk of the Devils column again last week about the fact that he meditates every single day, and I just loved the image of Benjamin Sesko sat cross-legged very silently, calmly in his back garden, visualising what he's going to do the next time he steps out at Old Trafford. So he's got the incense going maybe. Perhaps there's like a little water feature just with that sort of calming tinkle of water in the background. And he's just sat there, eyes closed, birds singing, just thinking about that moment when Bruno Fernandes crosses the ball and he rises above the Crystal Palace defence, hammers the ball with his head into the back of the goal, sends the stadium wild, jumps up into the air, and then he opens his eyes and focuses on the fact that he's going to do it again in his next appearance. I think that
his celebration was
image.
Good though, wasn't it? Like you can see the joy in his face. And I think he was alone for a little bit, wasn't he, before? And Bruno came and joined him. I think Yoro ran to Bruno to sort of applaud him for the cross, because you're thinking, Bruno's probably looking at that thinking, this is the man I need in the middle of the box. Sesko rising high to nod this in. This is the kind of player that I want as my striker to take these chances, because he creates chances. We can maybe touch a bit more on Fernandes, but he creates chances so frequently, doesn't he? But yeah, I agree with you, Ian. I love the fact that he's away from the game. He's got that calmness to him.
Yeah, the mindfulness stuff I really enjoy sort of hearing about. Yoga 3 times a week. We've talked about the box breathing, which I've had to explain to people because they don't really know what it is, but this idea of calming himself. And he even admitted, actually, I think after the Everton game, that it's something he does coming into matches while he's waiting to come on as a substitute. So it's a 4-second breath in, then it's a 4-second hold, then it's a 4-second exhale, then it's a 4-second hold, and keep doing that round and round and round. I've tried it in the car a couple of times as well, just to, when you get a bit of road rage or something like that, just to calm yourself down.
I do it pre-podcast before coming on here, just to make sure I bring my best
probably
performance.
wise, Critch, to be fair. Yeah, well, while you're thinking of your Tesco puns,
exactly.
There's one way of getting in the zone, isn't it?
I listen to rock music and rap. I'm like, don't rein me in. I'm like, I want to go full throttle.
As Laurie suggested there, Critch, Bruno Fernandes was brilliant once again. Obviously, he scored the penalty. He got the assist for Sesko's winner. It felt like everything good about Manchester United came through the captain again, didn't it?
How long have we been saying this for? Not just over the last 5 years, or more, 6 years now. But
I feel like I've asked
also
that question more than once, even today, and I haven't.
Even today, but certainly the last few weeks. I think I posed the question after the Tottenham game in a piece on The Athletic about whether he was the best player in the Premier League right now. And almost like inevitably, it felt like he dipped a little bit. And I mean from the super astronomical high level that he was at before that. Just because the games against West Ham and Everton, they were a little bit of a slog in places. And I thought that about the first half yesterday as well. But that second half, he runs the entire show. Yes, it's up against 10 men, but I even thought, the move that leads to the penalty is Bruno going out to the left wing where United just hadn't had a presence for most of the first half and punching a ball through the lines for Cunha to run onto, and that's what leads to the penalty. The cross itself for Sesko is superb, perfectly weighted. I mean, I know he disagreed a little bit about himself, but it was almost it was made for Sesko to impose himself on the defenders and get onto the end of it. And he is playing at a level at the minute, I think, yes, there's been little dips here and there, but you always trust him to try things. He will always keep trying things. A lot of things won't come off, but you always want him to keep doing the same thing and keep trying those balls that perhaps few other players in the league can play, because when they do come off, that changes games. And I still don't think it's an overestimation to really say that he is probably the informed player in the league right now, simply because he's making things happen on a weekly basis that few other players can do. And you look, sometimes, fans get frustrated with him. I just constantly think, like, he gives everything every match that he plays. He is the most technically gifted player in the team. He is such a huge influence off the pitch as well as on it. He is the perfect Manchester United player, the perfect Manchester United captain. And you're seeing him really hit a new level, I think, this year. I think Carl was doing a piece last week about just what his best season in a United shirt has been. And this one has got to be right up there for the level that he's showing week in, week out.
Laurie, it's maybe a bit early for this, but could he win Footballer of the Year,
That's
Bruno
just
Fernandes?
the question I was thinking as Critch was speaking.
Yeah, what do you think?
If United finish third, which is plausible now, and he continues to create and score, it was another game where he got an assist and scored. I think he's only behind, is it David Beckham and Ryan Giggs? Sorry, he overtook David Beckham, and it's now behind Wayne Rooney and Ryan Giggs in terms of Premier League, the amount of times they've done that in the Premier League. I just don't see who else. So say Arsenal win the league and City come second, or vice versa. Is there a player that stands out from those two teams that you'd say deserves it more than Bruno if United go on to finish third and he posts these numbers? Because football's about enjoyment. Football's about creativity and doing things that are miraculous and incomprehensible. And he's done that repeatedly this season. In this season where we saw the game yesterday, Arsenal v Chelsea, it was another rolling maul situation, wasn't it? Repeatedly, would you really pick a player out from those teams to deserve that?
I think Declan Rice is the one that people would argue for, but then I don't think it's a compelling argument. It's the parallel, I guess, on Bruno's side would be with Ginola in '99, wouldn't it? Where,
I was about to say, Critch, this revenge finally for David Ginola winning it in the treble season?
Is it Scott Parker was the other one I was going to suggest? That was a team that was facing relegation, and he managed to get the
Well, it can split the vote, can't
it?
Where you've got a team that's got several players, no one player standing out, but you've got several players getting attention. I mean, there'll be 2 or 3 from Arsenal, maybe 2 or 3 from Manchester City if they end up doing it as well. So maybe that gives him a run.
But it's not a season where usually you would go for somebody who wins the title, who has some sort of collective achievement that their individual contribution goes towards. But it doesn't feel like a year like if we expect that Arsenal go and win the league, and that's not a foregone conclusion whatsoever, they're not a team that has brilliant individual play. Who's their top scorer this season? Do they have more than 6 or 7 goals? I think that was a stat going around. Yeah, with own goal. Maybe he should get it.
Nearly got one yesterday.
So it's not that kind of year. So there is perhaps a space opening up for Bruno Fernandes in that regard. I don't think it's nailed on, but I think if he carries on playing in the way that he's playing over the last couple of months, then he has to be in the conversation.
Yeah, Victor Gyökeres, 10 goals is the leading scorer for Arsenal.
Come on.
But that's what I mean, yeah. He's and Saka's been below what he would usually be. So maybe you're looking at people like Saliba, Timber, Gabriel.
Rice, I think, yeah.
But have they contributed more this season than Bruno Fernandes? It's an interesting question. If he keeps up this form and being this decisive, and I guess the other thing, Laurie, is he's not even played in his natural position for the majority of the season. It's only the last few weeks that he's been restored to that number 10 role. He's done this in an unfamiliar place too.
Well, even as Critch says, he kind of had maybe more license yesterday to go into those wider areas as well. So, okay, the central role wasn't quite working. So he's come out to the left in the first half and put a couple of balls, and he's come out to the right in the second half to get that assist. So, I think the way that he can, commit to United, the energy that he gives, but trying stuff, having that risk, that element of gamble, which I think is the hallmark of a great United player. I think he's had a fantastic season to date, and hopefully it can continue.
Obviously, Bruno has stepped up, Critch, since Michael Carrick has been the manager of Manchester United, or the head coach, I should say. And the stats for for the head coach are impressive as well, aren't they? I mean, that's 5 wins out of 5 at Old Trafford now for him across his 2 spells. And actually, it's now meant, that victory, that he's equalled the best ever start in the Premier League for a Premier League boss. So 8 wins from his first 9 matches equals Ange Postecoglou's glorious start at Spurs, would you believe? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, saw a lot of people saying about how good his start was at United, but he'd managed Cardiff previously, so he's not really in the reckoning for this particular start. But even that start that he made as Manchester United boss in 2018 when he arrived as interim, replacing Jose Mourinho, it was 8 wins in a row, all competitions. But in fact, in the Premier League, his record's exactly the same as Ole's. So, you know, he might even be able to overtake Solskjaer's incredible start in the Premier League at least.
Deja vu, isn't it? Just a bit. Yeah, I don't know whether it bodes well or not that it's equal with Ange. I don't know what to make of that. Like, are we going to expect him to play? Are we expecting Carrick to field like his entire defensive line on the halfway line in a game in a couple of weeks' time? Because that's where it all started to fall apart for Ange at that point, wasn't it?
Perhaps there's a European trophy on the way. I can say that because Andy Mitten seems to have dropped out at the minute. I don't think they're having technical problems there.
Yeah, so look, I think nobody could have expected it to go any better than this, not least of all Michael Carrick himself. And he constantly says that let's not get carried away, but it becomes harder and harder with each passing game and each passing win. One thing I would say is that I think the performances have not been flawless over the last few games, and I think people have picked up on that. We've had emails about that ourselves.
Should we be concerned about that, Critch, or is it just about getting results for an interim boss at this stage?
It's obviously results are paramount. I think performances will always be underlying more important, and ultimately results will revert back to them. Like, you have teams that, look, we've got to remember there's plenty of good teams who don't win every week, and you know, then pressure starts to rise on managers because they aren't getting results even if the performances deserve them. And I don't think you can say that at Carrick yet. The results have sort of outmatched the performances in places. But what I would say is that there's been, even in games where they have struggled, and I sort of relate to this before, yesterday in particular, I think he saw what wasn't working and changed it. Like, there was zero width in that first half, especially once they lost Luke Shaw, who I don't think was having a great game himself. But Palace were constantly like doubling up on United's fullbacks and getting in behind with such ease. It took a little bit of time to work that out and tease that out, but you saw towards the end of the first half and at that second half, United play a little bit wider, stretch Palace a little bit more, ask a lot more questions of them, simply because Bruno was going out wide, because Cunha was going out wide. And that was without changing any personnel. Carrick had made a slight tactical tweak and asked them to show more intensity, be more aggressive. And that got the results. It leads to the penalty. It leads to Palace going down to 10 men. It leads to 3 points. And that, I would say, is, you know, it's almost a little bit more encouraging than if United were just going out and the questions weren't being asked of them. They're answering things in game at the minute. That is really encouraging, I would say. Without going over the top, I think when Carrick came in, I was very much like, I want to wait and see, because I'm sick of, I think when Amorim came in, I was on the overlap saying that United would finish above City at the end of the season. I was like, that burned me a little bit. So I'm trying to just stay calm, not get carried away, as everybody's saying. But there are real signs of, I don't know, just positivity and optimism that even when things don't go necessarily well or right, Carrick is changing things in game, and that's really encouraging.
Yeah. Actually, for a Manchester United boss as well, he's only the second man who's ever won his first 5 home league games. Franco Farrell in the 1970s won his first 6. So he'll have an opportunity to match and better that in the coming weeks as well. So, whichever way you look at it.
We'd like to ask Andy about that in the 70s, wouldn't we? But he has dropped
he's
out.
Gone.
I feel like
we have been having technical problems, so
it's been a bit messy,
this record, it's been like a bit messy at times.
I feel like his wife Bar at the Brits, when he was off getting a selfie with that train bloke, like, where is my husband? I think, like, where is my Andy? But anyway, we'll count our blessings and try and keep going. But yeah, I think that six wins in a row at Old Trafford. What do you reckon? Like, I think it's possible, right?
Is it Villa next then?
Villa and they're rubbish, aren't
they?
They're
very
no
good.
I
mean, I feel like we've got the right panel to talk about that particular chance of victory.
Imagine Emery just comes to Old Trafford, wins 1-0, sticks 2 fingers up to me and Critch in the press box.
I mean, if there is a man who could come along and put a team together to do that
true.
sort of thing. It is him. Although you look at the end of last season and the final result when
fell apart,
they really needed to win to get in the Champions League, and it was a disaster for them. So, Well, we'll preview that in a few weeks. Like we have said, this recording has been a bit of a farce at times with our technical problems. You won't notice on the edit because I'm sure Grayson and Ollie, our producers, will make it look as slick as it usually looks. If it usually looks slick, I don't know. But yeah, I'll let you decide that. But it's gone on so long, Laurie, you've got to go, aren't you?
So sorry.
Say goodbye. Well, thank you for being with us. I've given up on Andy as well. So Andy, thank you for being on as well. I don't know what's happened to him, but yeah, we'll get Andy back on the next one, and Laurie, we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you.
Right. And then there was two, Critch, just you and I, to preview Newcastle, because again, it's an important game for United. Newcastle's form recently, as we'll talk about in a moment, hasn't been great. But neither of United's trips up to St James's in recent times. They've lost 3 in a row in the league up there. Last year was a 4-1 defeat. It was a pretty heavily rotated team named by Ruben Amorim for that game. But the last win actually was October 2020 away to Newcastle.
I was there at that one. I was there for that one.
Were you there, were you?
I was there. I remember Saka score it, rounding it off right at the end. I remember.
Yeah, it would have been sort of lockdown
COVID
football,
era.
I think.
Yes, definitely. We were put up in the executive boxes at St James's Park, which was a rather nice experience, rather than being right down at the front where you get rained on at that stadium in the press box. But no, United. Well, I didn't realise it had been that long, to be honest. And yeah, the one last season, the reverse fixture last season, or corresponding fixture, Bayern in goal, a pretty rough day by all accounts. And it was right at that turning point, really, where I think the league had really gone, but full focus for that point was then on the Europa League. And you could start to see that reflected in Amorim's selections. Obviously, it's complete 180 now. There's so much to play for at this stage, a year later. And, I think United can go there relatively confident. I think going to St James's Park and winning over the last few seasons has been the marker of a good side. You've had to go and do that. It's been one of the toughest places to go. I'm not really sure you can say that anymore. I remember Arsenal winning there in September, and it felt like that was a real statement. But Newcastle lost 6 of the last 7. I think they've only beaten Spurs, and just about everyone's beaten Spurs, aren't they? So they've had 3 successive defeats at St James's Park in a row now. That's the first under Eddie Howe since he took charge. I think they're right for the taking. And you normally expect a level of intensity, directness, aggression, certainly from this Newcastle team, but it hasn't really been there in the last few weeks. And so I think United are well placed. Look, you can it feels like a different Newcastle team, a weaker and more fragile Newcastle team than the one that United have typically gone to play against at St James's Park over the last few years. So I think that can stand in United's favour.
Yeah, the game last season came right before that 5-4 against Lyon. So if it helped to tee up that moment at Old Trafford, I guess it wasn't all bad, but it was a pretty forgettable, pretty disastrous game, to be honest. So, it definitely needs to be much better than that, no question. You mentioned Newcastle's recent form, especially at home. Surprising for them, really, that they've not been as strong as they would usually be. So it definitely feels like an opportunity for United to end their miserable run in the North East. In terms of the team then, Luke Shaw, we've mentioned a couple of times, coming off in the game. There were suggestions he might have had a foot injury from a challenge with Daniel Munoz. He seemed to have his knee strapped. And there was also a mention of illness from Michael Carrick. So whichever one of those 3 you want to pick, it seems unlikely that he'll start. And that would be such a shame if he was to miss out, considering the fact that he started every single league game this season and it would end that run.
Yeah, I mean, his availability this season has been his best ability. But I think even though, when he has played, he's been he's had a positive impact, and he's been one of his better years in a United shirt. I don't think he had a great opening 20 minutes before he came off against Palace. But then, like I said before, I think perhaps Palace's game plan and the way that United were so narrow was exposing him a little bit. So I had some sympathy for him there. It's going to be interesting to see who replaces him. Mazraoui obviously came on for him against Palace. He's very right-footed. He looked very right-footed in that first half, and it basically denied United having any width on the pitch. It was only a few weeks ago we were talking about how Carrick was playing an entire front 3 of left footers, plus Shaw and Martinez at the back. And then yesterday, after Shaw went off, there was only Brian Mbeumo left, and he's playing right wing. And I think you could see, you could see that there was a slight imbalance there, and everything was a little bit predictable because of that. And it changed things after that. We'll see. So Mazraoui, I think he improved as he grew into the game and started to take up a few wider positions. Potential maybe Aiden Heaven coming on playing. Could he do a shift at left back? Friend of the podcast, Tyrone Malacia, still can't seem to get a game even when Luke Shaw's injured as well. So United have options. Whoever plays on that side as well is going to be probably going to be up against Anthony Elanga, aren't they?
Exactly,
so
yeah.
That's going to be an interesting battle, and I think it's one that United need to be careful about, even though Elanga's perhaps not had the best of starts to his Newcastle career. So it's interesting, and there's options there, but I wonder exactly how it's going to work, because I think it is important that United have that width that somebody like Shaw provides.
Yeah, they've rotated a little bit in those positions, Newcastle, across the matches. And Nick Voltemada has been playing deeper as well. He's been playing a midfield role and allowing the fast forwards to sort of lead the line, if you like, for Newcastle, as opposed to him being the target man, which was the case right at the start of the season and throughout the early periods of it as well. So it's been an interesting switch from Eddie Howe to do that. Anthony Elanga, obviously, like you've mentioned, but there's Harvey Barnes as well. Joe Willock's actually played in that role in recent weeks. Jacob Ramsey looks like he's finally arrived-ish as a Newcastle player too. They've been missing Bruno Guimaraes, which is a huge loss, obviously, for them. But Joe Linton's been back in the team in recent times after a groin problem that he's been managing. So, yeah, it's not the strongest Newcastle side, like we've mentioned. I think Mazraoui seems the obvious choice if it is having to deal with a one-on-one defender on that side, rather than someone like Heaven maybe playing out of position out there. But let's see what Michael Carrick goes with. Lo and behold, Luke Shaw might be okay. We didn't really get much of an update after the game. There will be another press conference ahead of the match on Wednesday, so we'll see what's said about that, because it's not just him. You've also got Mason Mount and Lisandro Martinez working their way back to fitness. Harry Maguire as well didn't look 100% when he came off, Critch. I don't know if you'd heard anything about him, but maybe there's a bit of a concern, because again, we've just not been used to these quick turnarounds. So it does bring into question the ability of these players to go again. And there's Benjamin Sesko even as well. Does he start again? You think he would, but you know, what would Ahmad say about that? Would he fancy starting? So, you know, there's a few things to consider with this quicker turnaround.
It is, and I think that the fact that there's only 3 days between these games raises a lot of questions, as you say. Sesko, I think he has to start again, right? Surely,
yeah,
but then we have seen Carrick not start him after he scored goals and winning goals and important goals. So it wouldn't be a total surprise. But at the same time, and there was a little hint, I think, in his post-match yesterday that look, maybe things will change for Wednesday. I think that's inevitable. There might have to be some changes. Casemiro playing 90 minutes. I mean, we've been used to, certainly under Amorim, he was coming off after an hour. He's played 90 minutes on Sunday, and then he's got a game 3 days later. So I wonder, could there potentially be a change there? Maybe Manu Ugarte comes in. I don't know. I feel like Casemiro can handle that amount of minutes, but I would be surprised if he's playing 90 again on Wednesday night. And Ahmad, look, I thought Ahmad, when he came on,
bright, wasn't he?
Made a real impact. And so, and again, we're talking about, I feel like I've talked about width a lot on here, but you really do need somebody who's going to stretch teams. And if there's one thing that we perhaps didn't mention when we were sort of debating between Sesko and Ahmad on the last podcast, it's that he is capable of that. He has that one-on-one ability that very few players in the squad have. You know, Bruno doesn't have it, Cunha to an extent, and Mbeumo sometimes, but he is really willing to take players on and beat them on the outside and on the inside. And I think that could be necessary in this game. So there's a few more selection headaches than usual, but also you can factor in that, look, it's a tight turnaround between these two games, but then how long is it until Villa? Like another week and a half. So maybe that balances it out in the end and means that Carrick can largely stick with the team that's proved successful for him so far. Because by and large, that's what he's done, right? The Sesko change against Palace was it the first sort of unforced change that he's really made? Not through injury since his.
Yeah, I think he was.
Yeah, he's shown faith in this lineup, in this 11, by and large, and so I wouldn't be totally surprised if he did that again on Wednesday.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Anthony Gordon was the other player I didn't mention for Newcastle who's been playing as the centre forward, but other than 4 goals away at Qarabag, doesn't feel like he's been finding his best form either. So let's see what Manchester United can do. We'll be back on the show, of course, after St James's Park. That should be coming your way on Thursday at some point. Hopefully, we'll have a few more than just me and you, Critch. But if it is just me and you, we'll go again. But thank you for your company. Thanks for lasting the distance, unlike the other two. And of course, everyone still listening and watching along, thank you for lasting the distance as well. We appreciate your support as always. If you want to get in touch, devilspod@theathletic.com. But we'll speak to you on the next show after Newcastle. Take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Talk of the Devils. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you've not done already. Like the video and also get involved in the comments too. And click the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode with myself, Andy Mitten, Carl Anker and Laurie Whitwell. There's also our social channels @TOT Devils on Instagram, X and TikTok. Thanks for watching.